So, when David De Gea missed Man United's last penalty in the Europa League final in 2021, many fans began to question whether his time at the club was coming to an end, and although he continued for 2 more seasons in Manchester, he was no longer a fan favourite, and the backbone of United's defence like he once was. That pivotal moment was the tipping point that seemed to symbolise his decline, as errors and inconsistency had already started to overshadow his once brilliant reputation. However, De Gea is still considered one of the best goalkeepers of this generation, and only 2 years prior to that penalty miss, he was rated the best goalkeeper in the world. His career has been anything but ordinary too, starting as a young prodigy at Atletico Madrid to becoming a Manchester United legend, with a failed Real Madrid move that almost happened in between, but we'll get to that later. And after leaving on a free transfer in 2023 and spending a year without a club, many fans thought his story was over. But since then he has silenced the doubters, joining Fiorentina and reminding the world why he was once considered the best. And when penalties came back to haunt him once again, the world would see a very different David De Gea. But again, we'll get to that later. So how did David De Gea go from the best goalkeeper in world football to a player pushed out of the club by his own fans, to then becoming a standout performer for Fiorentina at 34 years old? We answer all these questions as we go over the rise, fall and rise again of David De Gea. Go back to 2003 where De Gea was only 13 and his then coach Juan Luis Martin lied to Atletico Madrid saying that Rayo Vallecano were close to signing him. Just a few days later, ex-Atletico Madrid goalkeeper and at that time current scout for the club, Diego Diaz scouted De Gea and immediately signed him for the Atletico Madrid youth team. As he progressed through the youth ranks, he also featured for Spain's under-17 and even helped them win the under-17 European Championship in 2007, but couldn't replicate that same success as they lost in the final at under-17 World Cup a few months later. By 2008, at just 17 years old, he signed his first professional contract with the Spanish club, before completing a full season for Atletico Madrid's B team, making 35 appearances. However, in the summer of 2009, Atletico Madrid's sporting director, Jesus Garcia Pitache, was pushing for De Gea to accept a loan move to Numancia, but De Gea had other ideas. He rejected the opportunity, a decision that led to an unexpected punishment, being forced to train by himself. However, fate soon intervened. Atletico manager Abel Resino noticed De Gea by himself and invited him to train with the first team. From that moment, De Gea began climbing the pecking order, earning a spot as the squad's third-choice goalkeeper for the 2009/10 season. Little did anyone know, this chance encounter would be the spark that ignited his career at the Spanish club. With first-choice goalkeeper Sergio Asenjo away on international duty at the 2009 Under-20 World Cup, De Gea was called up to the senior team as cover for Roberto. However, when Roberto went down injured after 27 minutes in the Champions League against Porto, De Gea was forced to come on, and he made his debut for the Atletico first team at just 18 years old. Roberto's injury meant that De Gea was given his La Liga debut 3 days later, at home in the famous Vicente Calderón Stadium against Real Zaragoza, and although he gave away a penalty kick in the 19th minute, he immediately redeemed himself by saving the penalty as Atletico Madrid went on to win 2-1. As De Gea would go on to say, "Playing at the Vicente Calderón Stadium has been a dream since childhood." Over the next few months, it wouldn't be any different. By the time January came about, he was already being linked to Manchester United and the potential successor to Manchester United goalkeeper Edwin van der Sar, who was set to retire the following year. Shortly after, he signed a new contract with Atletico Madrid, keeping him at the club until 2013, and as by the time the 2010/11 season began, De Gea had already helped Atletico Madrid win another trophy, keeping a clean sheet and saving Diego Milito's penalty in the 90th minute as Atletico Madrid beat Inter 2-0 in the 2010 UEFA Super Cup, the same Inter team that had just won the treble the previous season. His form continued into the new season, including a faultless performance in the Madrid derby. Shortly after, De Gea was widely hailed as the natural successor to Real Madrid's iconic goalkeeper, Iker Casillas, for the Spanish national team. Even Casillas himself acknowledged De Gea's potential, stating, "In Spain we are lucky to have very good goalkeepers, and De Gea might soon be fighting for my place in the team." Spain manager Vicente del Bosque echoed this sentiment, calling De Gea the future of the team. From that point on, De Gea cemented his position as Atletico Madrid's undisputed number 1. He started every La Liga match for the rest of the season, guiding his team to a respectable 7th place finish, and further solidifying his reputation as one of football's most promising young talents. That same summer, De Gea arrived at the Under-21 European Championship and was named in UEFA's squad of the tournament as Spain won the whole thing. So with all this success at such a young age, it was only a matter of time before one of Europe's elite came knocking, and in June 2011, Manchester United confirmed what everyone had been expecting. David De Gea would be joining the club for a fee of £18.9 million, making him the most expensive goalkeeper in British football history at the time. But here's the thing, this wasn't just any transfer. De Gea was being brought in to replace a legend, Edwin van der Sar, a goalkeeper who had been the bedrock of United's defence for 6 years and had just retired after winning his 4th Premier League title with the club. No pressure, right? Fast forward to his debut. And well, it didn't exactly go to plan. De Gea's first competitive match for United came in the Community Shield against Manchester City at Wembley, and he conceded twice as Man United won 3-2. Then came his Premier League debut at West Brom, where he received criticism for failing to save Shane Long's goal during a 2-1 United victory, which Ferguson described as a learning process. To make matters worse, on 23rd October 2011, De Gea played as Manchester United suffered their worst home defeat since 1955 with a 6-1 loss against rivals Manchester City, the first time United had conceded 6 goals at home since 1930. But if there's one thing we know about De Gea, is that he doesn't crumble under pressure. Over the next few months, he began to adapt. Sure, there were still mistakes, still moments where his inexperience showed, but there were also flashes of brilliance, match-saving stops, reflexes that left fans in awe, and a calmness that grew with every game. By the end of his first season, despite the rocky start, De Gea had made 40 appearances across all competitions, and was beginning to win over the doubters. Sir Alex Ferguson never lost faith in him, and that backing proved crucial. The 2012-13 season was when everything clicked. De Gea was no longer the nervous youngster struggling with the physicality of the Premier League. He was becoming a dominant force. His shot-stopping ability was exceptional, his distribution improved, and crucially, he was commanding his penalty area with far more authority. United went on to win the Premier League title that season, Ferguson's 13th and final league title before his retirement, and De Gea played a massive role in it. He finished the campaign with 14 clean sheets in the league and was beginning to establish himself as one of the best goalkeepers in England. However, Ferguson's retirement in 2013 marked the beginning of a turbulent period for Manchester United. David Moyes came in and the team that had just won the league by 11 points suddenly looked lost. Yet, amid the chaos, De Gea was consistently brilliant. In fact, during the 2013-14 season, he was arguably United's best player, pulling off save after save to keep them in games they had no business being in. When Moyes was sacked after just 10 months, De Gea's performances were one of the few positives from that disastrous campaign. Louis van Gaal's arrival brought more stability, but United were still a shadow of their former selves, and once again, De Gea was the man keeping them afloat. The 2014-15 season saw him reach new heights, winning United's Player of the Year award and being named in the PFA Team of the Year. His performances were so good that Real Madrid came calling, and not just any interest. This was Real Madrid actively pursuing him to replace their aging captain, Iker Casillas, who had just left for Porto. The Spanish giants had identified De Gea as their #1 target, and United, despite their reluctance, eventually agreed to let him go. In fact, listen to this, on deadline day in September 2015, De Gea was literally minutes away from joining Real Madrid. The deal was agreed, a fee of around €30 million was settled, the paperwork was being processed, and De Gea had already said his goodbyes to teammates. He wasn't even training with the United squad in the days leading up to the deadline because everyone at the club knew he was leaving. But then, chaos. As the clock ticked down towards the deadline, something went wrong. The final documents weren't uploaded to FIFA's transfer matching system in time. United blamed Real Madrid for submitting the paperwork too late. Real Madrid blamed United for delaying the process. The deal collapsed at the last second due to what was officially called an administrative error, though many suspected there was more to it than that. Whether it was fate, incompetence, or perhaps even sabotage from one side or the other, De Gea stayed at United, and the aftermath was messy. De Gea was left in limbo, no longer a United player in his mind, but unable to join Real Madrid. He didn't play for United for the first month of the 2015-16 season, sitting on the sidelines as the saga played out in the media. From that moment on, something shifted. De Gea signed a new contract, committing his future to United, and over the next few years, he became the club's undisputed talisman. The 2017-18 season was his absolute peak. He was unstoppable, making saves that defied logic, single-handedly winning United points week after week. He won his 3rd Player of the Year award that season and was widely regarded as the best goalkeeper on the planet. At that point, it felt like De Gea could do no wrong. But then, cracks started to appear. The 2018-19 season saw his form dip slightly. 2022-23 season, it was clear his time at United was coming to an end. He was no longer the player who had carried the team for so long, and when his contract expired in the summer of 2023, United let him go. No fanfare, no emotional goodbye, just gone. For a player who had made 545 appearances for Manchester United, who had won the Premier League, the FA Cup, the League Cup, and the Europa League, who had been their best player for multiple seasons, it felt like an unceremonious end. And for the next year, De Gea was a free agent, training alone, waiting for the right opportunity. Many thought his career at the top level was over. However, then came the call. In August 2024, Fiorentina needed a goalkeeper, and they turned to De Gea. It wasn't the glamorous move some expected. It wasn't Real Madrid or a return to Atletico, but it was a chance to prove himself again, and De Gea took it with both hands. From the very first match, it was clear that the De Gea of old was back. His reflexes were sharp, his positioning was spot on, and most importantly, the confidence that had seemed to drain away during his final years at United had returned. Under Raffaele Palladino's system, De Gea found himself in a team that suited his strengths. Fiorentina didn't need him to be a sweeper keeper or a ball-playing maestro, they just needed him to do what he did best, make saves. And boy, did he make saves. However, it was one match in particular that truly announced his return to the elite level. October the 6th, 2024, Fiorentina versus AC Milan at the Stadio Artemio Franchi. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Just 3 years after that infamous penalty miss against Villarreal, the moment that seemed to symbolise his decline, De Gea found himself facing not one, but 2 penalties in the same match against one of Italy's biggest clubs. And guess what? He saved them both. The first came from Theo Hernandez, and De Gea dived to his left to push the ball away. The second arrived from Tammy Abraham, and once again De Gea guessed correctly, throwing himself to his right to make the save. Fiorentina went on to win 2-1, and the home crowd erupted. It wasn't just the saves themselves, it was what they represented. 3 years earlier, a penalty miss had defined his decline. Now, 2 penalty saves were defining his redemption. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, least of all De Gea himself. By the end of the 2024-25 season, De Gea had proven he still belonged at the top level. He helped Fiorentina push for European qualification, keeping crucial clean sheets and making match-winning saves week after week. At 34 years old, when most goalkeepers are winding down their careers, De Gea had reinvented himself, and with Fiorentina offering him another year, it was clear they wanted him to stay. The move had been a success for both parties. The redemption arc was complete, from the penalty miss that seemed to mark the beginning of the end, to being pushed out of Manchester United to a year in the wilderness. De Gea had come full circle. He wasn't just a stand-up performer at Fiorentina, he was a reminder that class is permanent, that even when the doubters write you off, even when it seems like your story is over, there's always a chance to prove them wrong. And as De Gea entered his second season in Florence, now a beloved figure in the city, one thing was certain: David De Gea had silenced every single critic. He wasn't just back, he was thriving. And if you want to see another story of a player who defied the odds and proved everyone wrong, click the video on the screen.